So in this question opens me up and opens us all up. And I turn to Rilke again. Ich lebe mein Leben in wachsenden Ringen. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I'm not sure I can make this last one, but I give myself to it. I've been circling around God, that primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? Same for you, that's same for you. I've learned that in my deep ecology friends, as we tell the truth of what we feel and know is happening in our world, as we let others speak through us, other life forms, that the life in us is so big, it cannot be reduced to one social role, to one curriculum vitae, that our roots go back to the beginnings of life. You know that, to the first splitting and spinning of the stars. And all of that journey forward, our human journey and those before us have brought us to this point. And we can be so grateful. I am so grateful to be alive now, because for life to continue, well, that means, and you know it in your heart, and that's why you're here at Pioneers, and that's why Kenny and Nina are so faithful in bringing it, that we have to make a giant step in our consciousness. We have to make real what we dream and know and intuit. That we are one planet people. And we can only be one planet people if we honor all our differences. That we belong to one living sacred body of earth. And when we get that, my brothers and sisters, you know, when we really get that, we'll be able to achieve the ongoing singing of the song of life. Isn't that so? And there have been other times in that when that question leads me into places that are so painful. And again then, I am grateful for Rainer Maria Rilke, who said toward the end of his life, in a sonnet to Orpheus, the last one, he said, "Quiet friend who has come so far, feel how your breathing makes more space around you." And then he says, "Let this darkness be a bell tower, and you the bell. And as you ring, what batters you becomes your strength." Oh, get that. As what batters you, then you realize that you're made for change. And I love it that systems thinking helps us see that. With the positive feedback loops where the change is so great that the old values and the old norms and the old self-images and the old worries and feuds don't fit anymore. And that you have to die to the old forms and resurrect in a larger self, wider rings. I have felt that again and again, and I love the word from systems that conveys that, because that's been true at every stage of the evolution of life, and in many stages of your life and mine. And the word is positive disintegration. Because you are having to die to images and concepts of yourself that are simply too small. That there is something so big that wants to happen through us, and that we must allow it to happen through us if we want life to continue on this planet. Because the engines of destruction are strong. so strong they're hard to look at. I want to give you an example of a positive disintegration for me. Through my son Jack, I'd gotten involved in the 1970s with nuclear energy, bringing it to a halt, stopping the reactors. Boy, one failure after another. Trying to stop Seabrook, online it went. Trying to stop a problem they were having at North Anna plant, windward of Washington where we lived. Failure again. But in the process, I knew what it was like to link arms with other people toward a big, important project, and that it felt so good to be working together that somehow the fact that we failed that lawsuit against the Virginia Electric Power Company, I was so glad that we did it anyway, because I'd come out of it different and changed. And I'd come out of it realizing more clearly what radioactive contamination does, what it does with its emissions at every reactor, even where there's no accident, and what it does to the body, and the miscarriages and the birth defects and the cancers and the leukemias, even when it's in normal production. And realizing that my government did not seem ready, nor did industry, nor the Nuclear Regulatory Commission seem to feel any kind of concern to talk to us about that, to help us deal with it. I knew that I had colleagues in distant time, and the beings of the future were at my side and in my heart. Because in dealing with nuclear contamination, as is happening when we deal with fracking now, those chemicals last forever in the water table. You know that. And the GMOs, that fiddling with the genetic material, you can't undo it. And so suddenly I found that my life didn't just belong to the present moment, but that my life was linked to those generations from now, indeed centuries, indeed millennia from now, who will be inheriting what we're doing now. And therefore, instead of just sitting around feeling bad, I felt I could hear them. And they said, "Joanna, get up off your duff and let's do something." In the Tibetan tradition, there is a prophecy that has taken on great meaning for me and my friends and colleagues. It was made 12 centuries ago, and when I went back to the community that I'm very close to in northwest India, Tashi Jong, where I've belonged to it in a way for the last 45 years since we were there in the Peace Corps. When I went back in the 1980s, they were talking about this prophecy as coming true in our time. So I said, "Oh, what's it about?" And they said, "It's so amazing, it's coming, but it's about a very dark time." My dear friend and teacher, Dugu Chirgyal Rinpoche, tells it this way, and I share it in that same way. And it has been like getting my marching orders for this time of the Great Turning. So it goes like this. There comes a time when all life on earth is in danger. In this time, great powers have arisen. barbarian powers, and although they waste their wealth in preparations to annihilate each other, they have much in common. Weaponable death and devastation, and technologies that lay waste the world. And it is just at this point, when all the future of all beings hangs by the frailest of threads, that the kingdom of Shambhala emerges. Now you can't go there. It's not a place. It exists in the hearts and minds of the Shambhala warriors. Actually, you can't tell a Shambhala warrior by looking at her or him because they wear no uniforms, no insignia, wave no banners, have no barricades on which to climb to threaten the enemy or behind which they can rest and regroup. They don't even have any home turf. Forever and always they must move across the terrain of the barbarian powers. And Chogyal Rinpoche said to me, now is the time when great courage is required of the Shambhala warriors. Moral courage and physical courage, because they're going to go into the heart of the barbarian powers to dismantle their weapons. And weapons in every sense of the word. The bombs and armaments manufactured and deployed, and the corridors of power where the decisions are made. To dismantle the weapons. And he said, Joanna, mark this. The Shambhala warriors know that these weapons can be dismantled because they are manomaya, mind-made. They are made by the human mind. They can be unmade by the human mind. Because the disasters that are threatening us and unfolding are not brought about by some extraterrestrial force or some satanic deity or even by an unchangeable, inexorable fate. They arise from our relationships and our priorities and our habits. They are made by the human mind. They can be unmade by the human mind. So the time is upon us, he said, when the Shambhala warriors go into training. Well, you can imagine. I said, how do they train? And he said they train in the use of two weapons. And that was the term he used. What are they, I asked. And he held up his hands the way the lamas hold the ritual objects in the great lama dances of this people. And he said, one is compassion, and the other is insight into the radical interdependence of all phenomena. And you need both. One is not enough. You need the compassion because that provides you the fuel, the motive force to get you out there where you need to be to do what you need to do. And what it consists of, basically, is not being afraid of the suffering of your world. And you know, when you're not afraid of the suffering of your world, nothing can stop you. But that by itself, he said, is too hot. It can burn you out. So you need the other. You need that wisdom, that insight into the mutual belonging of everything that is interwoven as it is in the web of life. And when you have that, you see, you know that this is not a war between the good guys and the bad guys, but that the line between good and evil runs through the landscape of every human heart. And we are so interwoven in the web of life that even the smallest act with clear intention has repercussions through that web that we can barely see. But that, he said, is a little cool by itself. So you need the heat of the compassion. And if you've looked at the Tibetan monks chanting, often you will, in their pujas, you will see their hands doing moving mudras. And often as not, they are dancing the interplay between karuna and prajna, compassion and wisdom. Well, that's the prophecy. And I thought, this is it, I've got my marching orders. And I remember my son Jack was with me at the time with the rest of the family. We had quarters at the edge of the settlement. And I went home that evening and I said, you won't believe the prophecy I just heard from Shuja Rinpoche. And I told it. And Jack said, well, did he tell you how it's going to turn out? Did he tell you how it's going to end? And I laughed and said, no, thank goodness. I wouldn't have believed him if he'd told me how it's going to turn out. And don't you believe anyone either who tells you how it's going to turn out. It's that not knowing that is our great gift, that don't know mind that lets us be great and lets great things happen. So, surprise, we find ourselves at war. My country, the one remaining superpower, as we tirelessly tell ourselves and anyone who will listen, is at war. Do we need a clearly defined enemy? No. No, not if you make it a war against terrorism. Or better yet, you can make it a war against evil. Then it can be permanent. Then it can be ubiquitous. And indeed, the war plans that they don't even bother classifying them, and their statements by our Secretary of Defense, Rumsfeld, and the U.S. Space Command makes it very clear what we feel that we need to do right out into the control of space. But that's not the final answer, because this turning is underway. It's a revolution, actually. It's the biggest revolution since, well, it's the third revolution of this magnitude that we know about. One of my teachers, Lester Brown of the World Watch Institute, now founder of the Earth Policy Institute, and others, points out that the first revolution of comparable magnitude to what we're going on now, that I'm going to great training, was the agricultural revolution. And that took centuries. And the second revolution, that came along a bunch later, the Industrial Revolution, and that took generations. In some cases with technology transferred to the global south, but you could do that in a decade. And then right on the heels of that, this, what he calls ecological revolution, or the environmental revolution, or the great work, as theologian Thomas Berry calls it, or the great turning, as I've been calling it with a lot of our colleagues. Imagining that phrase calls forth in my mind how the future generations will look back. They're going to look back in just a few generations at us here in these opening years of the third millennium. And they'll say, oh boy, those ancestors back then, they were part of the great turning. That huge shift from a suicidal political economy to a life-sustaining one. They were in the thick of it, and they didn't even know whether they could pull it off or not. After-handed. Actually, it's true. We don't know whether we can pull it off or not. And what's liberating when we look at this, because I know this revolution is happening, this great turning is taking place right now, that affirmation is balanced by the fact, to be perfectly honest, we don't know whether we can pull it off. We don't know whether it will happen in time to stop the unraveling of the living systems of Earth. But there's no guarantee. And it's good just to pause. Let me just pause here a moment. Because you know that there are people out there who, I'm sure nobody in this room, but people who don't get involved, who don't join this campaign or that one because they say, well, I'm not sure it'll make all the difference. Well, whoever is. So we remind ourselves of the basic uncertainty of life. We remind ourselves to say when you fall in love, there's no guarantee you're going to have a lasting, gorgeous relationship. But when you plant a garden and put the seeds in the ground, there's no guarantee you're going to have a great harvest. And you go into labor, there's no guarantee you're going to end up with a healthy baby. You know, if I could plant some little capsule to plant in your mind or mine the notion, everything's gonna be all right. You wouldn't believe it. And if you would believe it, with that assurance, everything's gonna be just hunky-dory. Don't worry, it looks a little chancy now. Would that call forth from you the greatest courage and creativity? Would it now? Well, this is Sunday morning. Planet Earth, this beautiful world. You know, this time that we are living is so extraordinary that I keep trying to believe it and to understand it. And as I do, and inspired by what Nina's quoted from Scott Momaday and her words as well, that we make sense of life and we guide ourselves by the stories we tell ourselves about us and the context in which we live, the larger story that can give meaning to us. And so I want to talk this morning about 3 stories that we're living in this time. And as I do, there will be, I hope, yes, there, that's us. That's a story, and that story is coming forward now, our cosmological story. But these pictures that will come up refer to all 3 of the stories, and they're, because they interweave, they're not going to be in any particular order. Are you dying to know what these stories are? Yeah. The first that most people believe in, particularly those in economic and political power, is business as usual in the industrial growth society. The second story that follows from that, the first kind of slides into it, which is the story that I know many of you, particularly those who are activists and scientists, carry in your hearts, the story of the great unraveling of living systems in this planet Earth. And there's another story, the third, and that is the story of the great turning, that shift from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. And that is what you are all involved in. That is what Bioneers is dedicated to. So I would like to look at these three in turn. The business as usual, that is, we're very successful at that. We ceaselessly tell ourselves. We are to keep us in comfort, convenience, security. No cost is spared. And the power holders in this society are actually proud of that. Can you believe it? They're proud of the fact that no cost is spared to keep us comfortable, to keep the lights on. We're ready to explode the mountaintops. We're ready to peel off the boreal forests. We're ready to let miles the size of Texas of plastic sweep over the Pacific for our convenience, for our security. This society only asks in return for that very little of us, actually. It doesn't ask much. It asks us to consume. And it asks us to shut up, to be silent, to consume, and to obey. But there are a lot of people in this hall and in this movement and in this Bioneers who are already breaking the mold on that. And the secret of the power behind this main story is, and also of its downfall, because it is in the process of self-destruction. You know that as well. If you don't know it in your mind, your body knows it, the erosion of life. But at any rate, it's because this industrial growth society sets its goals and measures its success by how fast it grows. It grows in what? Wisdom? Fertility? Health? One thing only. You know it. Corporate profits. Market share. Now, systems thinkers know, and it's common sense as well, that you cannot maximize one variable in an open system without it going out of control. And this system is on runaway. It's out of control. And so it's sliding into, and you here in Bioneers, you've seen evidence of that, and you see evidence of that in your life, that it's sliding into the second story, which is the great unraveling. I don't even know how to begin to talk about that. I mean, I can make lists of words. I can say words like mass extinction. I can say words like economic meltdown. I can tell words of loss of biodiversity, 1 billion people living in slums now. It doesn't begin to encompass something that is really beyond our capacity to comprehend, and yet it won't leave us alone. It resides in a grief that we carry, each one of us. Each one. I think that I'll move on to the third story. I'll come back to how we handle this. But the third story, of course, is this transition from the industrial growth society to the life-sustaining society. We are alive at this time. You have managed, as have I, to get ourselves born into this epochal transition. It's the third revolution of its magnitude and scope of our journey on this planet. It's as big as the Industrial Revolution, which took centuries to unfold. It's as big as the one that happened next 300 years ago in England, the Industrial Revolution, which changed everything all over again and changed our relations to each other and to the earth and turned the earth into what we see now. It's mainly a stock house and a sewer for drawing up the resources we need and dumping our waste. We aren't putting up with that. And so there is this revolution that is happening. But as you know, in spite of the cameras here, this real revolution is not televised. We're living it, though. And it's happening in our resistance to the desecration of life forms. It's happening in the farmers' markets, in the green building, in the new kind of schools, in the technologies, safe, renewable. It is happening. And it's happening mainly also in our heart minds, in the voices that we are hearing, the indigenous voices that have come here, and the indigenous voice inside each one of us. From science and from spirituality, and it is at the core a recognition that our earth is alive. Now, the thing about the Great Turning, my friends, as you know, is that it's not a done deal. We don't know whether it will take hold soon enough. It's underway, but before the unraveling breaks us down beyond the point that living systems can continue. You can lose the story of a living system. It can come apart. When a culture is lost, it's lost. When a species is lost, it's gone. When a language is gone, it's gone. So we don't know whether this great turning, which gives so much meaning to my life and to more and more of us as a whole planet, can happen in time. And so that's what I want to talk about today. We live in this time of radical uncertainty. That is the darkness of our age, I think. This anguish of uncertainty in which we live, it doesn't need to be an anguish, this awakeness of uncertainty. Well, Americans aren't used to that, you know. We were founded on not only unflagging optimism, but we like to ensure that we can count on certain things. We like to be confident about where we put our efforts. We want to be sure it's going to work. Well, we're in a situation where that kind of sureness can't happen. And so what I want to talk about this morning is the gifts of uncertainty. The promise of this dark age are the gifts that we can harvest from uncertainty itself. Five of them. I like to count things on the fingers of one hand. Here are the gifts that I've toted up, and I invite you to find some more. What do we get from uncertainty? We get the present moment, for one thing. We get a fresh recognition of the power of intention. We get the befriending of our pain and the great mystery that it brings us. We get our solidarity with all our relations. And we get an immensity of time, our true age. So that's what I want to talk about now. When you drop the need to be hopeful or hopeless, when you recognize that these are just feelings, that they might have more to do with what you had for breakfast or what somebody said to you in the last phone call, you don't put so much weight on them. Uncertainty can free us from the need to be constantly taking our emotional temperature as to how optimistic or pessimistic we are in the moment. Do you tap David on the shoulders? He's going out to fight Goliath, or Frodo. Wait a minute, are you hopeful? Get out of my way. I've got something to do. And in that, just that game of hopeful, hopeless is conjectural. It takes you out of the immediacy of the moment, which is where you're moving and where your strength is, and your alertness. Only in the present moment can you see what you're seeing. Only in the present moment can you feel what you're feeling. Only in the present moment can you take that step. So that's the second gift of this uncertainty, is that choice. Only in the present moment can we choose just what we're going to do. And it has been thrilling to me, both as a scholar of systems and of Buddhist teachings, to see that this capacity to choose is what is seen as the actual essence or nature of a self. We are, in our truest being, a verb, and the verb is what we're choosing to do. I used to think that it was more important what the results were that I achieved in whatever I was bent on doing, and that my motivation I took for granted. Oh, well, it's always there, you know. I can count on myself to care, for heaven's sakes. But then I realized that if I lose that motivation, lose that caring, I have nothing on which to intend. I'm at sea. And I can see why The Buddhist teachers put such great prize on bodhicitta, that motivation for the welfare of all. So we want to, don't take that for granted. Cherish it. Blow on that little ember. Make it into a flame. As Jesus said, and it comes right along with that bodhicitta, ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith will it be salted? That's what intention is like. Intention, your motivation, that you give a damn. Don't take that for granted. Bless it, that itch, that needing to take part. Thirdly, talking about the gifts of uncertainty. The courage to feel what you feel in the present moment. As you become present to your world, then you feel what you're carrying. That usually if you're being rushed and hurried out of your minds, you don't bother paying. You try to pave it over, block it down, shut it down, turn away, turn it off. But try as we might, it comes up again. The grief, the outrage, the raw fear. What in God's name are we doing to our world and to each other? And you now are not going to fall for the ploy of the industrial growth society to pathologize that pain. Hear me? Don't let people, therapists or well-meaning friends, try to explain it away in terms of your personal biography or that time of month. It is a measure of your evolution, it is a measure of your humanity. It is a measure of your nobility that you have a heart, mind big enough to see and empathize with the outrage being inflicted on our world and all our relations. I think I better stop ranting, you know. I just caught myself. So, let me give you a poem as well. This is the last sonnet to Orpheus by Rainer Maria Rilke. And it holds all the gifts of uncertainty. Quiet friend who has come so far. Feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Right here, right here. Let this darkness be a bell tower, and you the bell. And as you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. Swaying back and forth into the change. What's it like, this intensity of pain? If the drink is bitter, turn yourself to wine. In this uncontainable darkness, be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses. The meaning discovered there. And if the world has ceased to hear you, say to the silent earth, I flow, and to the rushing waters speak, I am. Oh, see, my brothers and sisters, that, as the poet saw, that is the meaning of the pain we feel for the suffering in our world. It means that we are inextricably, livingly connected. It is our body being savaged. And we are not separate. There is nothing that will ever happen. No cowardice, no folly, no failure will ever sever you from the living body of earth, because that's what you are. And this earth is waking up now. So you rest in that knowing. And know also then that the pain that comes up is just a gateway into which you go into a communion with the living world that is fearless. And that the pain for our world and the love for it are but two sides of the same coin. Indeed, that is so. Now I have to hurry up. There are two other gifts, right? One is solidarity. But we're feeling that, we're talking about that. Solidarity with the life forms. It was so beautiful to hear Nina talk about, from dolphin to prairie dog, that we're waking up into the family, to our kith and kin. We're linking arms. And this blessed unrest, as Paul Hawkins says, this largest social movement in history, yes, and it's bringing in all of their life forms, and we're linking arms. And we must open our eyes. This is what I love about systems theory, is it helps us see, but any good cook can see this when you make a stew or a soup, the synergies, the emergent properties that come. That is my substitute for hope, and it's a lot better, because with every step you take, something new happens. With every relationship, with every person you trust, with every person you come clean to and clear to, something happens. And now the last gift, well, it's that immensity of time. You see, we live in a time when our karma, that is the consequences of our actions, thanks to science and the industrial capitalism, extends into geological time, reaches of time, hundreds of thousands of generations. I learned this in my work around nuclear waste. The decisions we make right now in a multitude of activities will have direct effect on whether future generations, centuries and centuries, millennia from now, will be able to be born sound of mind and body. You better believe that. So the future ones are therefore in our actions right here now. Feathered ones and scaled ones. And so are the ancestors by the same token. I want you to feel them present, along with the brothers and sisters of all species and forms of beauty and strength. And you can let them be yours. Yeah, you deserve that, because they're on your side, you see. To be a human now in this darkness of uncertainty, they're all plugging for us. Please feel them, the ancestors and the future beings. Let them laugh in your ear as well as slap you on the backside and pull you forward, because we have great work to do. Well, first of all, we can't possibly know we're so interwoven in a dynamic web of activity that in sort of nonlinear causality, or the Buddha's central teaching of dependent co-arising, you can't fully know all the things that brought you here, that's behind an action, or all the results that will flow. So that you can't, there'll be moments, and I've known them, and maybe each of you has, where you have felt the despair of having been failed your purpose, that you have missed the boat, that you had done the wrong thing at the wrong time, or that there was a promise in you that hasn't flowered, or that that you would aim for something. But the thing is, with this non-linear way of seeing the web of life and all the interactions, or the internet, there's no way that you can see the fullness of your impact or the meaning of your life. There are people who have been altered already by a stray comment you might have made or written. So you can't know. You sort of somehow, we have to inoculate ourselves or protect ourselves from our judgments of our own futility. You can't tell that. And that is equally true of hope, that you can't tell the extent of, well, it's the same thing I'm saying. Of your impact on people. You know, there are people who said things to you, or who wrote something. They may not even be alive now, or maybe they've listened, but do they know what that did for you? Do they know the illuminations that their words to you, and the shape that your life gave to what they said? So we proceed in trust. I think trust is such a big thing now for me, to understand. And to trust. Mm-hmm. And also, we haven't been saying, but I find myself feeling more, although I see more bad news now than at any time, I feel more grateful. More grateful for this life. More grateful to be here now. And actually, it's so wonderful. You know how beautiful you are. Seeing your face, I feel so grateful for what you're internalizing in the teachings and your readiness. You don't need good news. You have a calling. Sometimes I think of people in other Buddha fields or other solar systems, all those exoplanets, think they're lining up in order to take a life in Earth right now. Oh boy, a chance to be born in Earth now if you want to experience bodhicitta. Because now is when it's so clear how beautiful it is to experience the sacredness of life and what it can bring forth.